All right, let's talk about something that causes so much confusion and, frankly, so much heartache in Florida family law. It's this huge question. Can my kid, can my teenager, actually decide who they want to live with? You hear it all the time, right? Well, the answer is a lot more complicated than you think, and getting it wrong can be really dangerous for your case. So let's get into it.
So here's what we're going to cover. We're going to start by blowing up this dangerous myth. Then we'll get into what really matters, and spoiler, it's about maturity, not some magic age. We'll even try to get inside a judge's head to see how they think. We'll tackle that tough situation, the teenage standoff. And finally, we'll cover the one thing, the one duty the court has that trumps absolutely everything else.
Yeah, this is the big one. It's the question parents ask constantly, and it seems so logical, doesn't it? I mean, you have a teenager, they're practically an adult. Shouldn't their opinion be the most important one? It makes sense on the surface. But believing that simple idea can lead you down a really wrong path in court.
And here it is, the reality check. The answer is just not a simple yes. It's way more complicated. And thinking that your child's preference is some kind of golden ticket, man, that can seriously hurt your case. It sets up false hope, and it can make you build your whole strategy on a foundation of sand.
Okay, first things first. Let's really tear this myth apart. Because this isn't just some academic legal point. We're talking about a belief that can cause real, actual damage to your case and your family's future when you're in the middle of a custody battle.
So let's get crystal clear on what the law actually says in Florida. Number one, the judge and only the judge makes the final decision. That's it. There is absolutely no magic age where a kid suddenly gets to call the shots. Now, is their preference considered? Yes, for sure. But think of it as just one small piece of a giant puzzle. And the final picture, the thing the judge is trying to build, is always what's in the child's best interests.
All right, so if it's not about turning 13 or 15 or 17, what is it about? This gets us to the real heart of the matter. The court is way less interested in how many candles are on the birthday cake and way more interested in the child's actual development and maturity. And this slide really lays it all out, the myth versus reality. The myth is that, poof, a switch flips on a birthday. But the legal reality? It's all about a careful, thoughtful evaluation by a judge. They're looking for real maturity, a deep understanding of what's happening, and the experience to back that preference up. It means a super mature 11-year-old might actually have their voice heard, while a really immature 15-year-old's opinion might not carry much weight at all.
And this quote, this really nails it. It's the whole explainer in one sentence. Florida law has a test of maturity, not chronology. It's not about your age. It's about how you think. Can you reason? Do you get the consequences of your choice? If there's one thing to remember, it's that phrase, maturity, not chronology.
Okay, so how does the judge do this? How do they figure out if a kid is mature? What are they actually looking for when a child says, I want to live with my dad or I want to be with my mom? It's not just a gut feeling, it's a real process.
It pretty much comes down to a three-point test. First, what are the reasons for the choice? Are they good, solid reasons? Second, and this is a big one, is the child saying this on their own? Is there any pressure or influence from a parent? And third, is the child emotionally mature enough to really understand the weight of this decision?
This chart here is perfect. It shows you exactly what a judge respects versus what they'll probably just ignore. So, a reasoned preference? That's about things like, I want to stay in my school, or I have a stronger bond with this parent. Stuff that makes sense. A whimsical preference? That's the stuff that gets tossed out. Things like, Dad's house has fewer rules, or Mom buys me more stuff. And the worst one? A preference that's just the result of one parent manipulating the kid.
So you might be wondering, how does a judge figure out the real story, especially when mom and dad are saying completely different things? Well, often they'll appoint someone called a guardian ad litem, or a GAL for short. Just think of the GAL as the court's own private investigator. They're a neutral third party, and their only job is to investigate everything and tell the judge what they think is truly in the child's best interest. And let me tell you, what the GAL says can often be the single most important thing in the whole case.
All right, let's talk about a situation that is just so tough for parents. I call it the teenage standoff. This is where the legal paperwork, the black and white court order, crashes right into the messy, real-world resistance of a teenager who's decided they're not going to listen. And this is it, right? The million-dollar question. The court order says your 16-year-old has to go to visitation this weekend, but they're standing in the doorway, arms crossed, saying, I'm not going. can you really force them? What are you supposed to do? It feels like the law and reality are on two different planets.
And here's that conflict, side by side. On one hand, the legal order. That parenting plan isn't a suggestion, it's a court order. It has to be followed. But on the other hand, the practical problem. I mean, trying to physically force a teenager into a car is not only difficult, it's probably going to cause a lot of emotional harm. So you're stuck. You can't just give in, but turning it into a huge power struggle isn't the answer either.
So what do? The answer isn't to just ignore the court order. That's a big mistake. And it's not to get into a screaming match every weekend. The correct legal move is to go back to court. You have to file a motion to formally modify the parenting plan. You argue that your teenager's mature, well-reasoned preference is a substantial change in circumstances that the court needs to consider.
Okay, this brings us to the final, and honestly, the most critical point. We've talked about maturity, we've talked about reasoning, we've talked about what a kid wants, but there is one thing that trumps all of it. It's the court's absolute, #1, non-negotiable duty.
So what is it? What's the one factor that can make a judge look at a mature teenager's very logical preference and say, nope? What's the single thing that a judge must put ahead of everything else?
It all comes down to these 4 simple words. The child's best interest. That is the North Star for every family court judge. It's not about what the parents want. It's not even ultimately about what the child says they want. It's about the court's fundamental duty to protect that child's safety and well-being.
So when would a judge do this? Well, a judge will absolutely step in and override a child's choice if the parent they've chosen, well, if that parent can't provide a stable home, or if they have a substance abuse problem, or if they live in a dangerous environment, or, and this one is huge, if that parent has actively tried to turn the child against the other parent.
At the end of the day, the court's job is to be the ultimate protector. Its duty is to shield the child, even if that means protecting them from their own bad choices, choices that might have been influenced by someone else. That is the court's most basic and important job. So we'll leave you with this final thought. Now that you know the myth is just that, a myth, and that it's all about maturity and good reasons, the whole challenge changes, doesn't it? It's not about waiting for your kid to turn 16 anymore. The real question is, how do you help present your child's true, genuine, uninfluenced preference to the court in a way that a judge will actually listen to and respect?